Hi class, this is Mr. Burns. We're going to be doing class a little bit differently today. Before we get started, you'll need to get a whiteboard and a marker and share the eraser rags. Once you're back, we'll start the slides. Turn off the pause. And on this first slide, let's take a look at the picture first. And here you're going to see three of the most important Allied leaders. On the left is Winston Churchill, Prime Minister of Great Britain. In the middle is Franklin Roosevelt, President of the United States. You can tell that he's not doing well. So World War II was almost over, and he was a very sick man, and he would not live to see the end of the war. And then the final one on the far right is Joseph Stalin. He was the dictator of the Soviet Union. As soon as these countries had eliminated the Nazis, our cooperation ended between the United States and the Soviet Union, basically because we had very different political and economic systems. In the United States we had capitalism, and in the Soviet Union we had communism. Let's go to the next slide, hopefully. Alright, on the next slide. Capitalism, just briefly, economic and political system of the U.S. We have free markets, private property. You can start any kind of business that you want, and people are free to accumulate great wealth. We also do have great poverty in our society, but it's important to know that individuals can own their own property and their businesses, and we have more freedom. Communism, the system, political and economic system of the Soviet Union. You have a lot of government control. The government owns all the industries and the farms, very little private property. Prices for goods are fixed. And again, let me emphasize the little freedom aspect there. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, on your whiteboards, please fill in the blank. The question is, Roosevelt is to the U.S. as Stalin is to the Soviet Union, as Churchill is to, fill in the blank with what word you think should go in there. Your teacher will now pause the screen to give you time to do that, and they'll start it up when you have finished that. Alright, I hope we have allowed enough time with the pause. Churchill is to, so we're looking for a country here, and the answer is, two possible answers. You could have England or Great Britain. I suppose some of you geography crazy guys could actually have the United Kingdom too as an acceptable answer. Alright, let's see what's going to happen next. Alright, our next question is, the economic and political system of the Soviet Union is A. Capitalism, B. Free markets, C. Slavery, D. Communism. Please write the letter on your board. We'll pause the video and we'll come back with your answers and have you hold up your boards in just a few seconds. We are back, so please hold your board up very high, and the correct answer here is D. Communism. Let's continue. All are true about communism except A. It seems to be the best system of government. B. The government owns all the industries. C. There is very little private property. D. It represents countries like Russia, China, and Cuba. We're going to pause the video now while you write your letter on your board, and then we'll hold up the boards to get the correct answer. So do the pause now. We are back, and the answer that is not true, the false answer to keep you in suspense, is the letter A. Alright, let's see what we got next. So the Cold War. You see those countries in the pink? Those are the satellite countries of the Soviet Union. They very much wanted protection from Western invasions. In two world wars, the Soviet Union had been invaded by Germany, and in World War II they lost 20 million people. So they stayed there. This caused the U.S. to see them as an aggressor, And then 1949 was a pretty critical year too, because the Russians exploded their atomic bomb and the giant Asian country of China would fall to the communists in 1949. So the U.S. had great fears among its people and politicians that communism was something that was bent on taking over the world. Let's go over this slide here quick. So in a hot war, to distinguish from the title of Cold War, a hot war is where you're shooting. You have soldiers, you have bombs, you have planes, and you have ships. You have a lot of destruction. The U.S. and the Soviet Union basically managed to avoid a hot war. That's why the years from 1949 to 1991 are called the Cold War. But we competed with each other in many different ways. So you might think that this is kind of crazy, but Olympic competitions were one of the competitions. The side that tended to win more gold medals would have bragging rights to say that it was a better system. We also competed in the space race, and the Russians were kind of first to get into that. And then arms race too. Who could build a bigger army? Who had more weapons? Who had more tanks? Who had more nuclear weapons? So there's a lot of different ways that the United States and the Soviet Union squared off against each other. Let's go and see what we have on the next slide. All right, we're going to jump back to the whiteboards again. Which is not one of the races that the U.S. and the Soviet Union challenged each other in during the Cold War? You are going to mark on your board. A. Olympic competitions. B. The space race. C. Fighting each other through stronger third world countries. Or D. The arms race. So go ahead and you mark your board, and in a couple seconds the teacher will start the video again. Here we go. The correct answer here is fighting each other through stronger third world countries. To make that statement true, we'd replace the word stronger with the word weaker. All right, let's see what we got next. Clear your board, and we got to fill in the blank. The United States was stunned when blank fell to the communists in 1949. Go ahead and write your answer on the board, and the teacher will pause the video and we'll be back in a few seconds. We are back, so hold your boards up nice and high, and the correct answer here is China. Let's see what we have next. Going over the next slide. Before we said 1949 was a critical year. Critical year because China fell to the communists, and after only 4 years, the Soviets exploded their atomic bomb. The United States had exploded their atomic bomb in 1945. Well, one of the reasons that they were able to do this so quickly is not just because they had scientists working around the clock on the problem. The Russians were also excellent spies, and they penetrated the British atomic program and the American atomic program, and there were many spies involved. David Greenglass, Julius, and Ethel Rosenberg, they were related, but the most important of the atomic spies was Klaus Fuchs. So he was stealing atomic secrets between 1942 to 1949. Eventually the FBI would catch all of these people. Fuchs and Greenglass would kind of reach an agreement with the government, and they would spend a lot of time in jail. The Rosenbergs were kind of pressured to maybe turn over other people, but they kept their silence, and kind of in a twist, they actually paid the ultimate price, and they were executed as spies for their assistance in helping the Russians get the bomb faster. All right, let's go see what we have on the next slide. Still talking about the the Cold War. 2 actual hot wars were fought. One was the Korean War, and about a decade later, the Vietnam War. The United States would send troops into both of these wars. The Soviet Union didn't send troops but they supplied a lot of weapons to the Vietnamese and the Koreans, and they gave a lot of military advice to them. The picture on this slide is of the first Kim. His name was Kim Il-sung. After he died, his son Kim Jong-il took over. And then after his death, his son Kim Jong-un took over. So this is the North Korean dictatorship, and it resides in the Kim family. Okay, let's do some more questions. So this next question says, what woman was executed for giving atomic secrets to the Russians? A. Martha Rosenberg, B. Elizabeth Rosenberg, C. Ethel Rosenberg, or D. Edna Rosenberg. Please write the letter of the correct answer on your plate, and then hold your plate up nice and high, and we'll pause the video to give you a little bit of time to do that. Okay, class, we're back. So hold those whiteboards up nice and high. The correct answer is C. Let's see what I got on my next slide. Fill in the blank question. Kim, family of dictators, has ruled blank since the end of World War II. Again, fill in that blank with what you think is the correct answer. We'll do a pause on the video and come back. Then you'll hold your boards up nice and high for all to see. I am back and you are back and the boards are in the air. The correct answer here is North Korea. Take a look around to see who's got that correct. A few more slides left to go. After World War II, Korea was independent but a divided country. They were divided at the 38th parallel after Japan's surrender. In 1950, the Soviets urged and supplied a North Korean attack on South Korea. This attack caught the South Koreans completely by surprise. Their army was in full retreat, and it looked like the country of South Korea was going to be defeated and reunited under the communist control of the North. President Truman decided that this could not be allowed to stand, and so he went to the UN, and the UN agreed with the United States that they should come to the aid of South Korea. So troops were sent to South Korea to help their armies fight off the North Koreans, and at the start of this war, these new forces were trapped at the very southern tip of the country. The picture there is General MacArthur. MacArthur is the general that Truman sent to lead the American and UN forces in fighting North Korea. When MacArthur got to Korea, he achieved a spectacular victory. Instead of fighting far to the south, he planned a secret invasion, a lot like D-Day in World War II, and he picked the northeastern South Korean town of Incheon, and he successfully landed an army there. And this army was able to race across the Korean peninsula. They cut off all the supplies to the North Korean army, and basically the North Korean army collapsed. So the goal of the United States and the UN had been achieved, but now we changed our plans. So now the war plan became, well, let's reunite the two Koreas under South Korean control and a capitalist government. There's going to be a further twist in here, and we'll get to that in a second. 37,000 Americans died in the Korean War, fought from 1950 to 1953. 94,000 Minnesotans went and fought in the Korean War, and the war was basically a stalemate. And the reason it became a stalemate is as MacArthur's forces were getting close to the border of North Korea and China, China decided that this was too big of a threat to their nation, and they needed to keep this UN army away from their territory. Plus, MacArthur was saying things like, we're this close, maybe we should overthrow the Chinese government. So, surprise attack was launched by huge Chinese army. They crossed the Yalu River, and now the American and UN forces were on the retreat. And basically, both armies fell into a long stalemate near the 38th parallel, which is where the original border was. Negotiations would take place, and there would be an armistice signed in July of 1953. Technically, the two Koreas are still in a state of war. Alright, so here, let's go with the final questions here. What special line divides the two Koreas? A, the equator. B, the 38th parallel. C, the Tropic of Capricorn. Or D, the line of demarcation. Please write that letter on your board, and you'll be holding up your board in a couple seconds, and I'll give you time. Pause the video, and then we'll come back for the correct answer. Okay, the correct answer. So you want to know, hopefully the boards are held up nice and high. The correct answer is B, 38th parallel. Okay, what else do I have here? Another question, so clear your boards. Which best explains why Truman fired MacArthur? A, MacArthur was a Republican and Truman was a Democrat. B, MacArthur publicly insulted Truman. C, MacArthur wanted to invade China and use nuclear weapons to destroy that communist country. Or D, Truman believed that the war would soon be lost under MacArthur's command. So write the letter of your correct answer on your board. I'll pause the video, give you some time to answer the question. Alright, you should have an answer now. Looking them over, it's not A, it's not B, it's not D. The correct answer for the firing is C. MacArthur wanting to make this a much bigger war. I think we have another question here. Yep, fill in the blank. Chinese forces entered the Korean War by secretly crossing the river called the blank in very large numbers. Okay, clear your boards, write your answer on your board. We'll pause the video and come back in a few seconds and we'll see how we do. Alrighty, we're back for this final question. Chinese forces entered the Korean War by secretly crossing the river called the... Give yourself a pat on the back if you said Yalu. Y-A-L-U. Okay, this is Mr. Burns signing out.